hear me online? Okay, we're going into the home stretch here. Last day of our all 7-day retreat, and many of you are shining. Notice how strong the chanting was this morning? Yeah. It's been a wonderful retreat, wonderful Dharma talks by Jun Roshi, Reverend Myogetsu, Yuki Sensei. So I was lying in bed, couldn't go back to sleep this morning. This often happens. In retreat, I get so much energy, I don't want to sleep. So, and I got the name for this talk this morning, which is a question searching for a question. What is a question? What's a worthy question? What's a question worthy of your engagement? Almost all koans are questions. Not all, but many of them are questions. Does a dog have Buddha nature? How do you stop the sound of the temple bell? Well, what's the question that does justice to your complexity? What's the question that is alive for you in the zeitgeist of this moment, in this time that we are living through? What's the question? It's not any old question, right? What's the meaning of my life? Who am I? But it can be whatever question is alive for you. And notice that questions are usually more useful than answers, aren't they? Questions open possibilities that we don't know are even here until we ask the question. What is possible for me to be here now with you? Who can I be here? What are the possibilities that emerge for me being here with you? And what are the possibilities for you emerge being here together and with me? What is possible for us in this moment? It might be different in the next moment or tomorrow, but what's here now? What's possible? That's a question. And if you answer it too quickly, then you might be in danger of short-circuiting the possibilities that could come if you were willing to hold the tension of the question. Or if it's not quite the right question, then you ask another question. And what would that question be? Anyone want to give it a shot? There's no right or wrong answers. What's the question that you're asking at the moment? Mm-hmm. Okay, so huh? Well, you think about it. Maybe it'll come to you before the end of the talk. So Myogetsu talked about Tokusan's. I'll talk about that case in a moment. I do want to say one thing about mindfulness and what we're doing, how we're practicing. One thing that's very useful to pay attention to, especially when we've been sitting this much, is how you begin and complete a gesture. Everything we do is a gesture. This is a gesture. A gesture has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's very useful in practice to be mindful of the whole gesture. Yeah? So when we bow, this is the beginning, this is the middle, this is the completion. Now, if you're not mindful of that gesture, it will look something. Yeah, it will be incomplete. And I'm not saying this to scold you or say there's anything wrong with that, but just there's an opportunity in practice when you pay attention to the wholeness of a gesture, which we usually don't do. It's very pleasant. It feels complete. When I drink the tea, this is a gesture. I'm picking it up. I'm trying to do it good because I'm trying to demonstrate it to you. I don't want to do it like sloppy, Yeah, and everything we do is opening a door, putting your shoes on, eating morioki. But when you have the awareness of the whole gesture, it's very pleasing. It feels complete. When you put your zafu, when you get up from sitting, if you just get up and walk away, it's an incomplete, you've left something incomplete. Because when you get done sitting, you puff up your zafu, you clean the zabuton, and you put the zafu right in the center of the zabuton. That's leaving no trace. We call it leaving no trace. It's a complete gesture. It's a way of being respectful. So we're doing that in all kinds of ways in practice. So there is a koan, case 28 from the Gateless Gate, Ryutan's name echoed long, that is about this encounter that Toksan has with a woman at the side of the road, one of these grandmotherly, I love these stories. There's not a whole lot of them, but there's a few in the koans where there's this old grandmother at the side selling sweet cakes or tea or something, and she almost always gives a young monk his comeuppance, right? Some arrogant green monk that thinks he knows everything, or and she usually, brings him up a little short. And this is one of those cases where Toksan, who, Deshan is his Chinese name. Toksan was a great scholar of the Diamond Sutra. He studied, and he was going south to confront these southern Zen Chan Buddhists that were talking about, sudden enlightenment. Huineng, the sixth patriarch, was going to go down there and debate them, prove them wrong. And he's on his way, and he comes to this tea stand where this old woman is selling the tea, and she says, "What do you got in your bags there?" And he says, "Oh, I have all the sutras from the Diamond Sutra." She goes, "Oh, that's interesting." So she asks him a question. She says, "The Diamond Sutra says that past mind is ungraspable. The present mind is ungraspable. The future mind is ungraspable. With which mind are you going to drink the tea?" And if you can answer it, I'll give it to you for free. But if you can't, I'm not going to give you anything. And Toksan was speechless for the first time in his life, maybe. Speechless. You know what to say. And to his credit, in that moment, he was, even though he was full of himself, he was humble enough to acknowledge that he didn't have the experience. He had the intellectual learning, but he didn't have it. So she recommended that he go study with Ryutan. And he goes and he studies with Ryutan. He's studying, mentoring, doing work in the monastery. And one night, he goes to see Ryutan, and he keeps him up really late at night, talking his head off. He's asking a question and talking about Diamond Sutra and this and that. And Ryutan's getting kind of tired and says, "It's getting kind of late. Maybe we should go to bed." And Toksan says, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea." So he opens the door to go outside, but it's pitch black. And he says, "I can't see anything." Ryutan lights a candle, hands it to him. And as he steps out the door, Ryutan blows the candle. And he immediately had a great awakening. And as the story goes, at that point, he's done with the sutra. He was going to burn them, throw them in the ocean or something. And he became a great, great teacher, Toksan. I was in a session once with Maizumi Roshi, and we were all the men were staying in the house where Maizumi Roshi stayed, and we would all use the bathroom together. It was kind of gross. It'd be like 10 of us in the bathroom, all at the same time, you know, brushing our teeth at the end of the day, and everyone's in there, and it's you know, it's like a gym. And I was one of the last ones in there brushing my teeth, and Maizumi Roshi was on the toilet. And I brush my teeth, and Maizumi gets up, walks out the door, turns the light off. Did he do that on purpose? Or did he just do that by habit? I never knew the answer. So the other day, Genshin brought up she's doing something down the basement. I don't quite know what she's doing, but she's gathering various things that she finds. And she found a letter that my mother had written to Maizumi Roshi when I was ordained in 1972. And I'm going to read you the letter that my mother wrote to Maizumi Roshi, and Maizumi Roshi's response. It's quite personal, and so I need to say that my mother, this is a picture the day I was ordained. My mother's looking a little perplexed about the whole thing. I have a lot of sadness about my mother because she was a deeply spiritual person, and she was also schizophrenic. And somehow the way that translated for her got mixed up in all kinds of ways. And so, in some ways, my mother doesn't feel complete to me, and there's a sadness about that, because she was deeply spiritual. And I'm pretty sure I talked to Maizumi Roshi about it from time to time. She would have breakdowns. She'd go on a religious retreat, and she'd come back, and she'd be high as a kite. And my father would take her out of the house. The first time, she was kicking and screaming. It was really traumatic. And he took her to an institution. She just, she was gone for a week. And she came back, and, they gave her shock treatment. And she came back as a zombie. No eros, no passion, all the life in her, all that juice was just. And underneath my mother's spontaneity and creativity as a schizophrenic, I think there was also a fair degree of anger. My mother's generation grew up in the World War II, and I think for women, adult women in the 50s, the 1950s, the atmosphere in America was extremely repressive towards women. And I think a lot of women were frustrated and pissed off. And the thing is that when my mother had a breakdown, she was free enough to let all that out, So anyway, I'll read you the letter that she wrote to Maizumi Roshi after my ordination. And she didn't understand what I was doing, but she didn't object to it. She felt there must be something to it, but she didn't understand it. And but Maizumi Roshi was very charming. He could be very charming. And I remember this, she had a question early on, the first time she met Maizumi Roshi. She had read something somewhere about Zen koans, and she read about the koan where Nansen cut the cat in two. Yeah? She said, what kind of religion is this? We're cutting cats in two. And she asked Maizumi Roshi this. She said, what's this about? Is my son going to be like stalking in the neighborhood, cutting cats in two? And Maizumi Roshi said, no, he's not. That's just it's a folk story, you know. And he charmed her. So she didn't know what I was doing, but she knew enough intuitively to know there was something meaningful in it for me, and she trusted me to that extent that even though she didn't know what it was about. So she wrote me this little letter, and my mother was very fond of finding puns in almost any word. I never understood what she was talking about. She would say, oh, that's a pun. Find double meanings in words, and she was very fond of puns, especially when she was having breakdowns. And she found puns in the unlikeliest places. But so here's her letter. It's dated July 27th, 1972. Dear Maizumi Roshi, this is a belated thank you letter, and for that I should be sorry. However, I am not. My thanks now in your graciousness to me goes much deeper than if I had written the letter on time, in accordance with good manners, so to speak. The dinner you prepared for me was out of this world. That's a strictly Western experience, I think. A Western expression, I think. She was really, didn't know what to make of Maizumi Roshi. All the pieces of the puzzle fit together for me now, and for this I know I am partially indebted to you and what Bob, or is his real name Joshu, is learning there. Will you accept my deepest thanks? I'm happy you think Bob will make a good monk. The paths all lead right there to the center, don't they? Oh, the puns. But isn't it fun? In Agape, Eleanor Althouse. P.S. Here's a koan puzzle for you. How many puns can you find above? I don't ever remember reading this letter until yesterday or whenever again she brought it up. Here's Maizumi Roshi's fun. And I'm telling this story partly because I want you to understand how great Maizumi Roshi was. He was really a very fine human being, fine Zen teacher, and subtle. But anyway, so for your mother's PS puzzle, the answer is so obvious, as many as I want. This is to be another koan. Distinguish the difference between an ox and a ram. What kind of songs they sing. Is there any difference between their horns? How does it differ between human and animal? Animate and inanimate? Monk and layman? Nun and laywoman? Sane and insane? See mu, exclamation point. Mighty thing having no form, can't be seen by your eyes, but by nose. Where is it? Maizumi Roshi. The thing about Maizumi Roshi, I never, Japanese are very subtle. They're indirect. And I never a lot of times I didn't know what Maizumi Roshi was trying to tell me. I had to kind of guess, because Japanese don't just come out and say it like we do. They say it indirectly. They'd be subtle. They just kind of expect you. It's like honoring your intelligence. They kind of expect you to get it, you know. So I always had this kind of double take with Maizumi Roshi. Sometimes I wasn't sure what he was asking of me. There's another question. What's the question? So there are other versions of this story with Tokusan where the woman sees the monk. She's asking her for directions to the monastery, and the woman says, "Oh, go straight on. Just go straight on." I had the good fortune also to do a few sessions with Soen Roshi, Soen Nakagawa Roshi. He was a lovely Zen teacher. He was a poet, artist, and we loved him. He always made fun of me, how earnest I was. He made fun of me all the time. And I didn't see this, but I heard there's a story that one time during a session on Halloween in the Dokusan room, in the Dokusan room, we didn't have chairs in those days, it was just cushions. You go in and you do seiza. And it was Halloween, and usually Soen Roshi did sessions in people's homes. We go around and put cloths over all the mirrors, like our monitor here. Because the idea is you shouldn't be seeing yourself, you know. And Soen Roshi put a pumpkin on the zafu where he usually sits, and he hid behind the door and he rang the bell to come in for Dokusan to see what they would do when they got in the pumpkin there. What kind of question are you going to ask the pumpkin? Or is the pumpkin asking you a question? And there's some really delightful stories about Soen Roshi. He was once staying in a home in Little Tokyo. And it was a kind of rough area of Little Tokyo in downtown Los Angeles. And his guest told him, now, at night, it's really rough here. You know, there's gangs, there's crime, you get held up, violence, don't go out. So it comes night. What do you think Soen Roshi does? Of course he goes out. He goes out. And he didn't speak real good English. He'd often tell us, just shit, nothing but shit. He pronounced the S quite. He knew what he was doing though. Just shit. So he's out walking around Little Tokyo, and this drunk comes by. He's really drunk, and kind of slurring his speech. He sees Soen Roshi, and Soen Roshi says, "Where can I find a woman?" And you know, Soen Roshi understood enough to kind of understand the situation. And he looks at this guy, and he looks around, you know, and he says, "Go straight on." So this kind of brings us back to Huineng, because Huineng was a really significant teacher, really a turning point in our tradition, where in the Southern school, Huineng really was teaching that enlightenment is not a process, it's not a gradual development. You can wake up right here, right now. Your true nature is always here. You can't lose it, you can't gain it, you can't possess it. It's right here. And the Platform Sutra is a beautiful, beautiful sutra. If you haven't read it, it's really worth going through. He goes through in the beginning, he's talking about his biography, the famous story, you know, where he comes to the fifth patriarch, and it's interesting, the first encounter he has with the fifth patriarch is interesting. If we have it here. Yeah, so Hongren asks him, where are you from? And Huinong says, I'm from the south, and the reason I come all this way is I want to be a Buddha. I don't want anything else. That's not arrogance, that's just clarity, clear intention. And the dialogue goes something further. I don't have written down the specifics, but Hongren says, you know, people from the south are barbarians. And Huinong says, you know, in the Buddha Dharma, there are no southern, you know, there are no southern or northern. It's just Buddha nature. It has no south or no north. And then, Hongren realized he had a live wire in his hands here. And he sent him out to the rice shed. He wasn't ordained as a priest. Sent him out to the rice shed to grind the rice, polish the rice. And that's where he practiced. Every day he'd go out to the rice, and as the story goes, he wasn't literate either. And it comes to a point where the fifth patriarch says, now all you monks have been kind of goofing off here in the monastery. It's time to get down to business. I want you to write a poem that demonstrates your understanding. Whoever writes the best poem will be my successor. And post the poems on the walls of the monastery. So everyone goes and posts poems. And then Shungsu, who was the head monk, everyone expected him to be, you know, the successor. He'd been there the longest, and so he wrote a verse. I'll read it exactly the way it is. So his poem went like this. The body is the Bodhi tree. The mind is like the stand of a clear mirror. Wipe it clean from time to time. Never let dust and rubbish adhere to it. Nice poem. Yeah. What we teach with mindfulness, you know, you can practice, you can, with intention and mindfulness, you can clarify, you can see habits that aren't serving you well, and you can change them, you can do all that. Everyone thought this was great. He was going to win the contest. And then, meantime, Huinong is out in the rice shed, and he's noticed everyone's getting all excited in the monastery. So he said, what's all the excitement about, you know? It's not all, you know, the abbot's asking people to write poems to demonstrate their understanding. And apparently the head monk has really written a really good one. So because, well, you know, it's a good story, I don't, you know, he says he can't read. So I said, well, would you read the poem for me? And so someone reads him the poem. And he goes back and he thinks about that for a little bit, and then he says to someone, he says, I think I could do better. You're an upstart, you just got here. What do you mean you can do better? And you know, would you please write this? I don't know how to write, just write it down for me. So here's his poem. The Bodhi is intrinsically no tree, nor has a clear mirror any stand. There is not one thing from the beginning. Where can dust and rubbish adhere at all? There's a question for you. Can you imagine being in a monastery where people were practicing hard and had been there for 10, 15 years, and some upstart comes along, and the abbot picks that upstart to be the successor. You know, monasteries were political. So the fifth patriarch calls Huinong to his quarters at midnight and gives him transmission. Gives him the robe and the bowl, which are the symbols of the transmission. And he says, now get out of Dodge, because come morning, if you're still here, you know, it could be dangerous. You could be risking your life. So that's how the platform starts. He tells his biography. But then the rest of the sutra, he's talking about one practice samadhi. Saying, you know, just have straightforward mind. Be sincere. Be yourself. Be straightforward. Don't cut corners. Just have a good heart and be sincere. It's not complicated, because you're already Buddha, so you don't have to try so hard. So just see your own mind directly. See your mind directly and be Buddha. Your true nature has no attributes. It's unconditional. It's indestructible. There are no stages, and there's nothing to differentiate. Somewhere in the sutra he talks about the three kayas. You know, kaya means body. There are like three ways that Buddha appears in the world. And Buddhas appear when they're suffering. When they're suffering, Buddhas appear. And the first way Buddha appears is called the Dharmakaya Buddha. This is the Buddha beyond concept, that we can't intellectually know. Large Buddha, Shunyata. And then there's the Sambhogakaya, which is kind of in the middle, which is sometimes called the bliss body, the subliminal, the dream body, something. The Dharmakaya is like really pristine and subtle, and then there's a step down, and then the Nirmanakaya is the embodied Buddha that shows up here on the planet, on the earth. We're Nirmanakaya. We're all three. Now, if we're too attached to the body, then we're going to suffer. We're going to be hanging on to this kaya, and this is, the body is home base for sure, but it's not all our true nature. Our true nature is unconditional. And like Maizumi Roshi said, you can't see it, but you can, we say of suchness, you hear it with your eyes. So when we get confused and lost, we think there's a problem and we need to fix it. And then we get attached to answers. And we get fixated on answers, ideologies, ideas. And we become uncomfortable and restless and unable really to see very far. You kind of create a kind of tunnel vision. And then we separate, right? We see something outside and something is inside. And then that creates this some kind of struggle. We have to struggle. We have to, this inside doesn't seem good enough and the outside is clearly not good enough. So we have to fix the outside and fix the inside. So in the sutra, Huineng says we can be confused by inside and outside. So if you attach to forms, you're confused by the outside. If you're attached to formlessness or emptiness, you're confused by the inside. So when we integrate inside and outside, then there is no objects inside and outside. And there's nothing to be hooked by, nothing to be attached to. Then we can be free. So it's useful to study our attachments. Actually, very useful to see what are my attachments? What am I attached to? Where do I get stuck? And instead of just trying to get rid of it, ask yourself some questions about your attachment. How does it serve me? How long have I been attached in this way to this? See how your attachment comes and goes. And see how it stirs up trouble for you when you hold on to it too tightly. You become smaller, more fearful when you hold on to an answer or an attachment or something that you grip it too tightly. There's another part of the sutra. He talks about taking the 4 great vows. We chant the 4 bodhisattva vows. So there's nobody to save. Everyone's Buddha. Who are you saving? I vow to save all sentient beings. They're already saved. So, saving yourself. When you save yourself, you save everyone. We take these vows to commit to living a life that's straightforward. And isn't that kind of answering a question that about what is it in your life that is asking for your full commitment? What is asking you? What is life asking of you? That is bringing forth that in you which will be wholehearted in the service of that. What's important enough to bring that forward in your life? That's the question that's searching for a question. We sometimes call it the Genjo koan, the ultimate koan, the ultimate question. And it can be different for each one of us. That's all I have to say. We have some discussion. Get the microphone.
Thank you very much for the talk, Dharma talk. I loved how you shared memories of Maizumi Roshi. I enjoy every time the people who met him shares the stories. And I loved the interaction between your mother and him. It's lovely. I wonder, especially as someone who saw everything that happened, and when I came to the U.S., hoping to meet all the Western Zen teachers, the time he ordained with Maizumi Roshi, and how we're practicing today, society have changed. Society? It's changed. Yeah. Well, I shared yesterday how I had this grasping mind. I had something already in my mind that became a huge hindrance in my practice, and I think I still have those, but. So no, just wanted to say thank you, but I wonder if you see the changes, how it's happening in the world as you see people come and go.
How do I see the changes happening in the world?
Participants, Zen practitioners.
Oh, yeah. That's a big question. Good question. Oh. Yeah, but I have my little view of things. It's just a little view. I don't know that. I think we're going through very difficult times, but I've been saying that for the last 20 years. So I don't know that it's any more difficult now than it was 20 years ago, but it seems to be pretty difficult. The country is divided. And I don't want to go into it, but I do think that what we're facing with the poly crisis is the most serious problem we have, and it affects it's related to everything that is going on. So the poly crisis it's not just one thing like global warming. It's healthcare crisis, it's crisis in families, it's crisis in the economy, it's crisis in politics, it's crisis in conversations, in communication has been corrupted. The sacred has been corrupted, and that's all happening on all kind of dynamic levels. I think we're all experiencing that personally in many different ways, and I think it's very difficult to know how to address that, because it's so big and overwhelming that we feel like I can't do anything, there's nothing I can do about it. And I think that's I don't think this is going away. I think it's the fires from Canada, it's not just forests that are burning now, it's the tundra, it's releasing, instead of the earth taking in carbon, it's now releasing more carbon. This is like something has reversed completely in the balance of nature. So I think our situation is fairly dire, and I don't often on my, I don't feel a lot of hope about that. I think that we are likely, we've already gone past the tipping point where it's too late. And then, so I mean, that's what keeps me up at night. That's the stuff that I think about. But the thing about my Zumi Roshi, I immediately feel better when I think of my Zumi Roshi. And my mother died about a year after I was ordained. And she was hit by a drunk driver, killed instantly. And I spent a lot of time with my Zumi Roshi, crying, drinking sake. And he was like a father to me, very kind. And he saw me through a really difficult period in my life. So I don't know about the world out there. I think things come down to personal relationships and love, and how much we can, our hearts, open our hearts, have a good heart like you do. Yeah.
Working on it.
You can work on it. It's over there. So, I don't know about the world. It's confusing. Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Roshi. I'm so taken by your encouragement for us to bring forth the answer, bring forth the questions rather than the constant search for the answer, the answer, the answer, the way, the way, the way.
Yeah.
It's so, it's in some ways it really lightens that sense of, even if we don't know the question to ask, to sit with that sort of confusion of what's the question? I don't know, what's the question? Rather than immediately trying to fill in the blank or put some spin to it that is, not as meaningful. And that feels very heartfelt and very important this, during this time. So, thank you.
Because the world we live in, it's easy to be upregulated, get triggered by the crisis, because it is a crisis. But what we do, the way we react to that crisis is usually we reach for a linear answer, and it's not going to be so complex. The world is complex, we are complex, and complex systems do not obey linear laws. And that's what we don't understand about the world. We keep reaching for to engineer something, which we're very good at, but that's not going to fix global warming. And so I think we need totally new ways of, you don't address complex problems directly, you address them indirectly. Like my Zumi Roshi talked to me, kind of that way. You don't go head on, you move around it, and I think that's something that we need to learn. And I don't think we have a lot of training on how to do this, and I'm working a lot with Nora Bateson because I think she learned from her father very much about how to think in systems and with complexity without reducing things down. And I think the problem in the world now with what modernity has given birth to really is this habit in the culture of reducing everything down to something linear. And that's causing, and people can do this with the best of intentions and actually be causing more problems as a result. So I think the part of the direction for me is is just personal relationships and cultivating good, nurturing, healthy community, things kind of at the local level, things coming from the ground up. From the top down, it's hopeless, and it's really discouraging, but we can do things in our families, in our communities from the bottom up that I think have the most leverage. Chris?
Thank you. I really enjoyed so many elements of your talk. I don't know if I was mishearing it, but in my Zumi Roshi's response to your mother, I sensed a playfulness.
Yeah.
And what role does playfulness or humor have in Zen, if any?
It's huge. Oh God, don't get me started.
Because
I think it's a really big role.
I don't sense it very often.
In Zen?
I sense more of a seriousness.
Yeah, well, we
And
shouldn't take ourselves too
that's
seriously.
just, that could just be the lens I'm bringing to it, and I could ask myself about that.
Yeah. Well, I think Chan and Zen actually does have a fairly good sense of humor about the world and a kind of sacrilegious sense of humor. I think it comes from Taoism. It doesn't come from Buddhism. Buddhism has lists, eight this, 7 this, 6 that, and then the 32 unwholesome, afflictions, and there's no humor in that. It's lists, it's linear. And I think Taoism was the indigenous practice of China. It was very old, and it was feminine. It was a feminine-oriented type of, and I think Taoism brought a lot of playfulness and humor, and kind of this, the name is not the name, not too analytical, kind of let things flow, be spontaneous, go with the Tao, be in accord with the Tao. So we've already changed, when we chant the dedications now, we don't say Buddha way. We used to translate it as Buddha way, and that sounds like something Buddhist. But the word is actually Tao, Buddha Tao.
Oh, that's really helpful, thank you.
Yeah, so I think there's a fair amount of humor, but I experience in Ongo, when we do Ongo, a lot of times things are difficult, but there's a lot of laughter. And so I think the humor comes with practice, and the playfulness is also a huge part of the spontaneity of being in the moment. But we could play some more.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for asking that question after the last one, because I felt like my light question was going to be like maybe a little too light. I really loved the talk, and I loved something that that you made me think of with the first koans that I really appreciate now when I thought about it a bit more is how often the most cherished and celebrated stories of masters are every time they're wrong or every time they don't know something. And in the way that the stories are written, they're written from the perspective of the monk or monk and one other person. And so ostensibly the person who is relaying how wrong they are is the monk. It's the master telling everybody else and saying, you won't believe how wrong I was and how little I know. And I think to me that is such a crown jewel of our heritage, and that the people that are that we celebrate as being the great masters are the people that are the first to say they're wrong. And I really appreciate that.
God, I don't know any of those. Which ones are you talking about? There is a column where the teacher says, there is no teacher of Zen. And the monk replies, what do you mean there's no teacher at Zen? We're doing all this practice and services and things. I didn't see that. I didn't say there was no Zen. I just said there's no teacher of Zen.
Also, I wanted to say I loved hearing the little stories of just Mizumi, and then just I think there's a really charming and like incredible sort of history of just the early Zen in America and the things lost in translation and how much, but just the effort of trying to sort of convey that over. And I think you should write a book or something on like the little stories. You should call it The Silent Chuckle. All the tiny little funny stories.
So that would be a hit.
I would love that. I'd buy it.
At least I have one comfortable.
Yeah, I'll be the first customer.
Well, Sam, that's your book. That's your book.
So thank you so much, Roshi, for the talk. It was just very touching, and just kind of, elevated out of me just thoughts of my mother, my stepmother, just the mothers in my life, and the gratitude. And as far as fun, so Roshi Bernie went to clown school.
You did.
I'm learning, and it's too late now, but it would be interesting to hear what it was like, the Roshi's being around him as he was becoming a full-fledged clown. There might be some fun stories there for another talk. Yes. So anyway, it's interesting reading and learning about the lineage and all the comedy and fun that goes with that.
We have an order of disorder.
Yeah, order of disorder.
You can
Yes.
belong to it, but we don't know who's in it.
But they all have red noses. They all have clown
I
noses.
applied to Peter, but I don't know. I never got an acceptance letter, so I don't know if I'm in here.
I think you're in it without permission.
You might be the chief clown.
No,
Could you pass this on, please?
I'll tell you a story about when I first learned about clown. I did a clown workshop with Yosha, June and me did in Paris. Remember that? Who was it? Moshe. Yeah. Moshe. And I got, the clown came out of the closet for the first time in my life, and I was like just exhilarated, This clown had been freed, and I had a nose. And we went to, I remember we went to a very classy Parisian cafe for dinner. And we're sitting there, I kept putting my clown, we're drinking champagne. I kept putting my clown nose on, and she was brought up with, she's a good Japanese daughter, brought up with good upbringing, and she was like so embarrassed, I was just making a fool of myself, and I was just clueless, That's how I started clowning, was by embarrassing my wife.
Roshi, I was hoping you had a nose in your pocket and was going to put it on when we were asking about humor.
I'm not prepared, but I don't.
You're not prepared,
I don't really
man.
need a nose. I already have a nose.
Yeah, you already have a nose, yeah. I thought there was a story of you had that on your driver's license in California or something. You put a nose on you to.
I did try to do that. I think they rejected the photograph. I did try to do that.
Yes, yes.
When we were remember that, honey? When we were Santa Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
But they rejected my photograph. They wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
I put it right with, you're in the
Yeah,
DMV,
yeah.
they took the camera, and right before she took it, I put it on.
Yeah,
And she
yeah,
took it.
yeah. Yeah, I thinking about laughter, and I remember a first session, and it was in Arizona, and first experience of the Dokusan and interviews, and there was somebody who this cackling laughter, and I'm like, how annoying, and now. I was sitting, when I've been sitting here at night, and I think it was the last night, and just delighting and hearing the laughter coming out of, the interviews, that it was just, it's part of it, and it's a beautiful part of it is the laughter and the not holding on so tightly, or laughing at ourselves for holding on so tightly. So for me, it's a big part of
Yeah, that's good. We probably take
practice.
ourselves too seriously. Probably. We all should do a clown workshop. We gotta get Moshe to come here and do a clown workshop. Did you do that, Chris, when he was here?
No, I
Oh,
didn't.
you missed it. Oh, you missed it. It was lovely. Hmm?
I know that analytical.
A Vajra can do it too. You would be a Vajra clown. You could be an analytical clown. It's possible. I'd like to see that. Hmm. Okay, maybe that's enough for today. Okay, so I have nothing else to say.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you can take this back to the archives. Okay. We can.